me. Hi.
Stardate. I'm the problem. It's me. 61284.3. Welcome to Star Trek Discovery Pod, a kind of smart, kind of funny podcast covering new and classic Trek. I'm your unassimilated captain for the night, Mariah Gossett, and with me on the view screen we have...
It's Clyde Haynes. Resistance is not futile.
And you have your friendly neighborhood neurolytic pathogen, Paul Satachet.
Very nice.
It took me so long to come up with that.
Only a few episodes in, and Paul, you're finally getting the groove.
Like a data sample of one is not a trend.
We're counting our victories tonight, Paul.
I'm not even sure if I want this to be a trend. I was on another pod where every week for 6 seasons, when we introduced ourselves, I had to say, "Hi, I am something clever," and it's a lot of pressure. Sometimes I just want to be Clyde. I just want to be high.
You can
but not today. But we are Borg. We are Borg. Not today. Not today.
Not today. But tonight we are reviewing and chatting about Star Trek Prodigy, episode 12, Let Sleeping Borg Lie. First, we just have a few reminders. Paul, where can people find us on the internets?
Hey, on the internet, you can find us on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Please subscribe. All our links are at StarTrekPod.co. And if you like our content, if you love our content, please consider
like or love any statute.
Just don't hate me. Just don't hate me.
Even if you hate our content and you want to donate, we'll take that too. Just $2 an episode will keep us going at patreon.com/StarTrekPod.
All right, Clyde.
And if you're watching us live on YouTube, then we encourage you to please participate in our live chat. If you have a comment or a question, or you want us to just address something during the pod, then just type the capital word P, capital O, capital D, capital pod in all caps before your comment, and we will check it out. And in a moment, there's a special time in our show where you will know what it is. Just type capital H, capital F, capital HF in the chat, and we will take a look at your thoughts on the episode.
Correct. Okay. I think it's time we take a non-threatening walk through this episode of Prodigy without being detected by the Borg. Let Sleeping Borg Lie was directed by Olga Ula. I'm going to look up pronouncers one day. Olga Ulanova and Xing Shin. It's written by Deandra Pendleton Thompson. And I think we all know what time it might be for some
hot freaks. Hot freaks.
It's time for some hot freaks. Clyde, what did you think of this episode?
There are moments in Prodigy. So I loved the first episode. And I was like, man, this is really good. And to be honest with you, I watched the first episode early. I think during the Peanut Hamper episode of Lower Decks. So at that moment, I was like, man, this Prodigy is amazing. I am enjoying Prodigy way more than I'm enjoying Lower Decks. This episode reminded me that this is a kid's show. Right? Like this was a moment where I was like, oh yeah, I'm not the demographic because I have children. And when I sit and watch shows with them, I'm always like, why did they do that? Like, that's really, really dumb. Like what? This premise is driving me nuts. And to me, the whole conversation about should they venture onto the Borg ship was like, under no circumstances should you do this. There is nothing that you're going to say that is going to validate this reason. And yet they found a way to go into the Borg ship. And I was just like, no.
That's funny that's the point you took qualms with. We'll talk about it later. Paul, what did you think about this episode?
I not only thought it was good, I thought it was good enough. No. I mean, like, I also am not the demographic. But like, I was like, oh, well, you know, of a bunch of kids, like, you know, who never met the Borg before, and, you know, like, go like, oh, they have the answer, and like, you know, the old hologram lady says, like, I advise you not to do it, and they go, nah, like, sure, why not? Why not? So per your, but like I thought it was fine. If I was a kid, I go like, oh, I guess the Borg are scary-ish. I wish they were a little scarier. You know, that would be my only thing. Like they just looked like they looked really cleaned up, like
Mhm.
really cleaned up. And I was like, oh, you could have made it a little more threatening, more Star Trek 7.
Yeah. I agree with both of you. I had fun with this episode. I think it is that like kind of turning point. It feels like it's an episode that serves a purpose to sort of give us our format for the second half of this
Mhm.
season, since they did an expanded season order. And I thought it was a smart way to introduce the concept of the Borg to people who don't know what the Borg are, right? Like they need to be like, oh, this is a big scary villain, but this is still a kid show. We can't go like fully into all of this. I agree with you though, Paul. I think because I, as a small child, was obsessed with horror movies, I was like, this could be way scarier. Like,
Yeah,
where is like some fog, some spookiness, a little
Eh,
Scooby-Doo, if you will,
yeah.
you know,
Like
like,
just a little fog would have been interesting, or just a little atmosphere. That's the word. Like just
yeah,
like a little. I will say that it's probably best that they had the nanoprobes turned off,
yes.
because otherwise, like you're like what the like this they should have been assimilated in seconds.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
like so I was okay with that. Like hence the neurolytic pathogen, which I come to realize. I go like that's just words. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah. It's just
Bra-
Star Trek gobbledygook that they've put
Yep.
together to qualm the people who are going to be like, but wait a second.
I have a brain virus.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Um,
there was this moment, like it was definitely very Nickelodeon. So you've got
right.
this
Mm,
chase scene where it's like, oh no, and I'm thinking, you know that you're shooting this phaser and it's having no effect. Why are you continuing to shoot this
Because they're
phaser?
kids. Because they're
Thank you.
kids.
Make it
Because they're
because they're
kids.
kids. That's right.
Let's see what the
Although well, my favorite part was when like Gwen like goes with her like with her air lube and makes a bath lift or whatever.
I thought the same thing. I was like,
Uh,
yes.
and then it has like no effect.
Yeah.
I was like, I was going, okay, that's great. That's great. That's hilarious.
let's see what the chat had to say. Cheapy Hot Freak. It was not my favorite, but it was a good one for Zero's character development. I agree. I thought it was
Yes.
nice to finally see
Yep,
a
yep.
pivot there. Michael L. I like the Borg who had an air conditioner on his head. There was some interesting looking
Oh,
Borg
I saw
in this
that
episode.
exact. Yeah, I remember
Yes.
that one. That was hilarious.
I thought it was a television. I was like, why is there a square-headed Borg?
Yeah.
But okay.
I did like that we got to see, I think, a few more species like that have been assimilated in this episode, not just very humanoid Borg. So I thought that was
Like
like a fun use of animation.
Rhino Borg. I saw like a
Mhm.
Exactly.
very cool.
Kuhn says Hot Freak animated Borg are scary. If Janeway had to switch to tea, I wish it was Earl Grey. That would have been funny. I did wish her order was black tea, hot, like just like the cadence of a Picard
Yeah.
order. That would have felt kind of fun to me.
I thought about that, right? And I was, as she was saying it, I was thinking, I asked myself, do I want her? Because she was like tea, and I'm thinking, do I want her to say Earl Grey? And I was like, no, I don't, because Janeway isn't Picard.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that we love about Janeway, is that she's her own thing.
Yeah.
I was like, I was like, black tea, like it could have been Janeway's a little bit more creative than that, right?
Although, well, she gets her coffee. It's always coffee black. So
Yeah.
I guess tea black. I get it. I get it. Let's see. Marge, love Prodigy, but stepped too fast, too soon.
Yeah. I think I can see that. I can see like that. It just felt like, oh, here we are at the Borg, and and then like it just felt by the books in a way that didn't have a lot of, aside from Zero, a lot of development in character or anything.
Yeah. To cake. I'm
Taco.
so sorry, y'all. I'm so tired. Pod, but was it sufficiently scary for the demographics? I also apologize for all of the name butchering tonight, y'all. I'm like, I can barely read the screen anymore.
You're the problem. It's you.
I am the problem. It's me. No, I 100%. But Pod, but was it sufficiently scary for the demographic? What do y'all think? Do you think I have a hard time judging this because I have been such a horror fan from a young age, and like literally as a small child watched Night of the Living Dead and would giggle at the screen, which I'm sure is even more terrifying than the movie itself.
But it explains so much about you,
doesn't it? But Clyde, you as resident parent of the pod,
I'm asking myself, do I think my children would have been scared by the Borg? And I don't think so. I think it would have been slightly suspenseful, but I don't think they would have found them scary. I think like any other premise, they're being chased, and they could have been chased by any bad guy whatsoever, but it's just they're being chased by bad guys.
Like there weren't any jump scares.
No.
So like, and there wasn't like that like dread music like that would be like
but also to your point earlier, Paul, the Borg were cleaned up, right? Like when we see the Borg, like especially when we first got introduced to the Borg, like they look like zombies. There's always some eye attachment that's like moving around, and someone always has a hand with like a saw, right? And then you've got like the nanoprobe tentacles that they get near you, and it's like right in the side of your face. That is scary. We had none of that.
These Borg are going to an award show, basically. Like they're cleaned up. They've
had a bath.
Right.
Exactly.
So they've got a new assimilation program where they bring you back to the center, and they tie you up, and then they have the it's like it's like we're gonna clean you up, we're gonna do some stuff, and we're gonna upgrade you, as Pog said, right? Like I'm like, nah, that's not how it works, man.
Yeah, well, that's how Picard got assimilated, right? He didn't get nanoprobed; he got like tabled, and like So this is more old school.
Yeah, I did. There was some fun, like very like kid show tropey things, but I found them enjoyable. I feel like Jankum Pog is really that like consistent character for the little moments of comedic levity that you find in most children's shows.
I think he's my favorite character.
Yeah, and Jason Mantzoukas really delivers on voice acting, so I feel like it's going to hit almost every time.
I wasn't sure I didn't know what to think originally about Jason, because in a lot of his characters, they're like way over the top, right? Like he can go pretty
Rafi from the League,
yeah, like the League, like bad mouth or big mouth, like he could be way out there. So, like where he's normally on like an 11 or 12. I wasn't quite sure how he was going to dial it back, and he's done a phenomenal job. I'm actually really impressed by his range, and I don't even think about some of those other characters when I'm looking at Jankum, right?
Yeah, I loved how he had like a quick kind of love-hate relationship with the Borg cube. Like at first he was like, you can't put Jacob in a cube. And then it's like, ooh, but look at all this fun, shiny stuff that I'm like very into. And then like immediately frustrated when he can't figure out a way to like get into the computer. I thought that was like a fun little character moment. And then, a lot of folks in the chat are talking about Zero. And I thought this was a good Zero episode. I thought they did a good job of finally sort of leaving, hopefully behind this, like, I have to make up for hurting my friend moment in order to save everybody else kind of thing. And this felt like a moment of redemption and a way for them to kind of move past that and have some emotional catharsis.
Yeah, I like Sakako's comment here. But how about Zero losing himself or itself? Would that resonate with young elementary age kids? I don't know. Mariah, what do you think?
I mean, to me, it's like when there's like the popular kids, right? Like if we're going to break this down into like lessons you're teaching kids at schools, right? It's like, you don't have to fit in with the big popular group, the like-minded thinkers in order to be your best self. And like, you should just find friends who like you for you and don't want you to be like them. If we're going to break this down into a morality lesson using the Borg of all things. But yeah, I think it's fine.
I think where it works is it works on multiple levels, right? Like, I think for the really young kids, they're not quite going to get it. But I think for some of the more, your 8, your 9-year olds, they're probably going to get a little bit more. And I think you're right, Mariah. It is. I have never thought about the hive mind as a popularity metaphor, but it's actually pretty interesting as one.
It is, yeah. And Marge asked, what is the age group for the show? So it's technically rated for ages 8 and above, is like the rating given to the show by whatever the MP, whatever blah 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 board is. That gives
the Borg,
things.
the
Borg,
MPAA Borg.
the TV Borg gave it.
Yeah.
It says
popular
8 to
kids.
18.
That's right.
Which is such a wide range, 8 to 18. I did also. Oh, what did y'all think? So we have the diviner on board with Janeway, and the diviner also went through the same process as Gwen, seeing Zero in their true self.
Well, Gwen saw reflection, right?
Yes.
So she got her memory wiped. Whereas like Medusans tend to make people crazy, like Spock.
Yeah.
So yeah,
So
I don't know. Like
I can't remember. The diviner also only saw a reflection, then, correct?
Oh no, the diviner got full frontal.
Okay.
Yeah.
I did love that we got some explanation about what this is about, right? Or at least a partial explanation about
right.
He's from the future. He's upset. Like he's really trying to destroy the Federation before the Federation really becomes the Federation. Like feels very Discovery-esque, only in reverse.
Yeah, I wonder what he's trying to prevent, because if he's come back to this point in time, right? Like this is essentially between Lower Decks and Picard is sort of our timeline here. So I wonder what the diviner is trying to stop from happening.
Well, first contact, right? That's ultimately what they're. I mean, he says it so much in the episode. Like first contact causes a civil war between his civilization. That's in the 2 part.
On his planet, right?
Yeah, and so and Jacob's like, in like what? How does first contact do that? But like, it's all, it's really hard for me because like the idea of it is fine for motivation for the diviner. I totally get it, but then like at the end of that 2-parter, like he gets the protostar. And then he has all these kids on the asteroid and goes, "Let them die." They're all these. And goes like that. How is that gonna help your like your get rid of the Civil War a bit? Like it's not entirely like like he's arch for a reason, I guess, because it's a kids show. But like the let them die. Like they're not gonna get away from. It's gonna slowly suffocate. Like okay, my sympathy for you is limited.
Not a super complicated villain as of yet, like just straight up bad guy. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean you're spot on. I mean, I think again, we can't apply an adult show premise and how we break down an adult show.
Yeah, I saw some
kids.
people in like comments on like some reviews I read today that were like so in depth about like their opinions about plot points that I'm just like, y'all, it is a kids show.
It's a kids show.
Like very well performed, beautifully animated, fairly compelling plot arches each episode. I don't really know what you're complaining about. Like,
yeah, bad guys on kids shows aren't not that nuanced.
They gotta be twirly mustaches,
Yes,
like,
it's because the idea here is that he's obviously bad, and whatever reason he has for being bad is not. You're not looking for empathy for it. It's misguided.
Yeah, it's got to be a motivating factor where there's a solution that these kids can solve, right? Like ultimately, this bad guy can't succeed. So whatever the problem is going to be a problem that this ragtag group of kids is going to be able to solve by the end of the show. Like,
and for kids, we're not looking for sympathy for the bad guys, right? Like if you think about some of the other kind of the big bads, like if you think about Discovery. Right, and we think about the character who was trying to get back to his long lost love, right? I can't even remember his name now, but the evil genius who Book ended up hanging out with for a bit.
Oh, oh yeah, he was.
Yes.
Yeah,
He was
I can
that
picture him.
memorable, everyone.
Well, I remember
Starts
him.
with a T. No, it starts with a
He-
T.
He's a Ricean. You know,
Yes.
he's from
Yes.
Rice.
Well, yes, he was Ryzen. He was supposed to be Ryzen. Anyway, the point is, when you heard his argument, you looked at it and was like, I see, like, I can understand why he's so passionate about this. He's trying to get back this thing that he's lost, right? This person, he's trying to get back. He's trying to deliver on a promise. Like, he's doing it the wrong way and is willing to sacrifice way too many people for it. But I understand his motives. In a kid's show, for the diviner, everything he does is going to be twirly mustache evil.
Thank you,
Right?
Kuhn. It's Tarka. It's going to
Tarka,
drive me
yes.
crazy.
But I said, so I think that's what we, and so I don't want to overanalyze the diviner. I think we paint him in the picture as a bad guy and we go, okay, well, to your point, Mariah, now how do these kids, right? In Scooby-Doo fashion, how do the kids stop the bad guy, the adult bad guy?
I don't know, but like, I do feel like this episode was Merv light.
I actually expected. I'm trying to figure out what's happening because I was expecting more, because it
From
was
Murph?
like, yeah, because it was kind of like we had this whole moment where they're saying,
I mean,
he's indestructible, but he can't have a cold, and I was like, what's going on with Murph?
I think it's the start. Like, we know we're going to get like a Murph evolution, this season. So I think this is like the start of that, perchance. My other question though is, like, Murph swallowed like a bomb,
some photon grenades and the core.
Yeah. So couldn't Murph eat a
living construct?
Yeah.
That's
and then
what I thought.
And then like spit it out in space or something. I don't know. We'll have to see what Murph turns into.
I imagine the living construct is going to be like the alien database in Discovery. Like where it has a protective whatever, it'll do whatever it says to protect itself. So I get that.
So here is my crazy theory.
Mm-hmm.
Theory, everyone, Clyde's theory.
Gotta make you a banner.
Yeah, I believe that the living construct is going to be turned at some point from evil to good, and that is going to be a thing that the protostar is able to do. So it's going to be able to connect with people and actually be kind of a life giver than a life taker.
So if they can do enough good deeds, the living weapon on board will eventually become good.
Yep.
Okay. I like that.
And if he's wrong, everyone, he'll give everyone who's listening $100.
I don't have
Double.
This is a Star Trek universe. Money has no meaning here. We don't use it.
In the Federation, baby.
Tell you what. If I'm wrong, I will give a lucky listener an imaginary piece of latinum.
Ooh,
there you go. Gold plated or liquid.
Liquid. An imaginary piece of liquid latinum. There you go.
There we go. Wow.
Here.
In there. Okay, very good.
What did y'all think of our Tellarite curmudgeon-y doctor that we have on board Janeway's ship?
Oh, here's the thing. Isn't Jankum a Tellarite?
Yes.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so, like, does he not have the same?
Jankum's supposed to be a kid. They're all supposed to be kids.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so, like, I thought he was great as far as, like, the ill-mannered doctor. So yeah, I thought that was great. Like, it's species specific. It's a little, I don't want to say racist, but like, okay,
falling into some tropes.
I don't know. It just seems like a little like leaning into certain things here, but like but yeah, it fit.
It seemed again a little extra curmudgeon-y for no reason. I was kind of like, dude, you're the doctor, and you're just like, man, basically like, you keep kissing tail like this, and we'll be calling you captain. Like, dude, for real? Like that was not necessary in any way, shape, or form.
That scene too felt very like, I don't know. I feel like our core cast feels like they have chemistry together. I know everything is taped separately for the most part. But that like grouping on Janeway's, like all of the humanoid like Federation stuff, I feel like it's missing a little connective tissue. Like there's some dead air in the dialogue editing that doesn't feel natural.
Mariah, is this Michael Ellis saying that the Telluride doctor is Jason Alexander, who
It's
turns out
true.
to be?
Yeah.
No.
You mean to tell me I missed that? I typically catch voices really good. Now I'm annoyed. So I'm gonna watch this for a third
that's
time.
why, because it's lacking some charisma in there. Like, and I feel like it's in the dialogue editing. That's my
like how much Federation have we seen? We saw a little bit of the Dauntless last episode. We saw them pick up the Diviner. But like, you know, that's not enough. It's not enough to say, I don't think.
Yeah, no, I it was mostly just that scene really stuck out to me. It felt like start stoppy. It felt like when I make a first draft cut of a podcast episode that has a lot of dialogue pieces from different voices, and then you listen through and you're like, oh, this doesn't sound like anyone having a real conversation, and then you have to fix it.
I will say this, that I think what's really interesting is Janeway hologram sounds not audioly, but like, you know, but like character wise different than Admiral Janeway. I thought that was really good of them.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
Which one's more Janeway to you?
I feel like hologram feels the most nostalgic Janeway, but the like in real time Janeway feels like the Admiral Janeway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I feel like Admiral Janeway has this tone of like, again,
I can't have coffee. I gotta do this weird shit now.
You know, Mariah, I think you're right in the fact that
do you have a little Medusan behind you, Clyde?
I do. We'll be joining shortly. I think that Admiral Janeway seems so huge and is doing such a great job. I think it's eclipsing the people around her just a little bit.
Oh, maybe.
There's a chemistry thing that is it's just not on the same level. Like she's sticking out, she's killing it. And I'm just like, I'm not bought into everybody else yet.
Yeah. Perhaps it's just like she can literally just drop into Janeway at the drop of a hat versus these other folks are still finding their character's voice literally.
Sure.
With like 3-word sentences and replies. Yeah, there's what else? I was trying to think of anything else. Oh, I do think my favorite line, I think someone pointed out in the chat, was great. The Borg never assimilated a turbo lift. I thought that was the best line of the episode.
Agreed.
But yeah, I thought it tied up in a nice kid show way. Love and friendship is what matters. It will help you get through, and we should all do good deeds even if we don't get our way, right? Ultimately is our morality moment here today.
Do we want to teach people that? Do we really want should we
I don't
just
know.
teach people like, you know, like get it.
Get yours, right? Go for yours.
Right.
Focus
Get it
on
all.
you.
That's
Go
right.
for gold.
That's right.
Get what you need. Screw the rest.
See, like I hear that and I go like, you know what I would watch? I'd watch a Ferengi show that was like all just like it's just all these jerk characters. Like, you know, I think that'd be great to watch. It'd be like it'd be groundbreaking.
Yeah, I was like, everyone loves a good like anti-hero character, and the Ferengis might be the ultimate anti-heroes.
Yeah, no. Like when I watched Deep Space Nine, the Ferengi episodes tended to be the ones that I kind of skipped on my first walkthrough. But then, like, you know, as I got, you know, like ultimately it comes down to Nog. Like Nog is like probably one of my 4 favorite characters in all of Star Trek. And there's one scene in one episode where like he explains why he wants to join Starfleet, and it's just so beautiful and heartbreaking. And you know, I was like, oh, this is
Is that the baseball episode?
No, this is the one where like he reaches maturity and he asks Cisco for an apprenticeship, and then everyone's going like, "Why does Nog want to join Starfleet?" Like
Oh yeah, I do
and
remember
and then
this.
like he's almost crying, going like, I don't have the lobes, like I have my dad's hands. My dad's gonna wish, that my uncle dies and he's gonna inherit the bar, but he would be a genius in Starfleet. I have, and I don't want to be like my dad. It was just so heartbreaking and so beautiful, and like anyway, but I'm a big Nog fan. Team
You
Nog.
know, it's interesting because as you're talking about this, I'm thinking about it because, um, our Patreon subscribers decided, I guess it was like last week, they did a watch along for the first episode of the 4th season of DS9.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where, it's a double episode where Worf joins the cast.
Sure.
And so, I mean, it's season 4. So I've gone back and tried to watch DS9 a couple times, and I don't think I've ever made it to season 4 and on a rewatch. And so I jumped in and started watching on season 4. It's really good. like so when you're talking about these characters, these rich characters, these Ferengis, whether it's the Dominions, the return of the Klingons, like the storylines and the character development, because you're not in a space battle every week and you have the stationary point, the character development for the anti-heroes is actually really good. And so I'd be up for a Ferengi character in a show like Prodigy.
Yeah, no, it'd be cool. We'll see how it goes, but like
Yeah.
Anyway, Team Nog.
Team Nog all the way. Chippy with the fun fact: did you know that the voice actor of Admiral Buenamigo is also the actual father for the actor who voices Ruktak, which is cute. I like the little Star Trek family.
Wow.
Sounds to me like
cool.
there goes like
nepotism babies.
and cronyism. I don't know, man. Like that's great. I'm glad everyone has their shot.
I think it's cute. And if you guys want to join our Patreon for just $2 per episode, The Visitor is the next DS9 watch along on Monday night. It's going to be a good time. I think it's also time for some housekeeping notes for everyone. I think we have decided, because the episodes are shorter for Prodigy, that we are going to pod every other week to talk about Prodigy. So we'll cover 2 episodes of Prodigy per episode, which will give us some more time to do some bonus eps for the patrons as well. We're going to pick a couple of episodes that we think tie into Prodigy, and we'll do some bonuses over there for our Patreon members. Yeah, so that's just some updates from us. But y'all, did you have anything else you wanted to talk about from this episode of Prodigy?
I would say I'm hoping that we get more out of the Chakotay storyline.
Mm-hmm.
I think that might add something. I know whether we're fans of the actor himself or not, the character from a nostalgia standpoint, and maybe that'll introduce some chemistry with Janeway. I'm hoping that at least from a Star Trek standpoint is it brings a little something extra to the show.
Like, this is questions for our listeners. Do we know if the Dauntless has a proto drive or is it a quantum slipstream? Like, I have a vague recollection that, like, when I read some obscure that the Dauntless, Admiral Janeway's ship, has slipstream, but I'm too lazy to really do some research.
Well, I thought that the Protostar is the only ship of its type. Like, it's the only one.
Sure. At which point do I go like, is it as fast as slipstream or transwarp, or is it, I don't know. These are all like Star Trek engineering. I had lunch with some old engineering friends, old as in that they are both old and they are long time. And so I just thinking engineering wise, like, I don't know the answer.
Yeah,
So,
I don't know. I'm assuming the Protostar is faster than the Dauntless. It does look like the Dauntless has a slipstream.
And we're talking about it like it's proven technology.
Yeah.
So,
Every time I talk to Dr. Aaron, one of the science consultants
Okay.
on the show, like we'll talk about obviously a lot of Star Trek stuff.
Mhm.
And she always tries to make the point, like a lot of the stuff, not everything, obviously, but a lot of the things that they have on the show are things that are like possible in theory through math, but no one's been able to fully engineer it. Right. Like it just hasn't been able to like bridge the gap. It's like mathematically, a lot of these things are possible, like time travel and like warp drive and all this stuff.
And like
but
space mushrooms.
yeah, space
Teleporting
mushrooms.
instantaneously across, the galaxy. Space mushroom. Yeah.
Yeah. But you know,
That's in the it's in the math. It's in the math.
science fiction often makes way for real science. So
Right.
we can dream.
And anyone who discovers space mushrooms, Clyde will give them 100 bricks of gold platinum. That's right. Just so you know, guaranteed. My promise to you.
Yeah.
So
People will be disappointed.
Okay, y'all. Well, I think that is it for our coverage this week of Star Trek Prodigy. We will be off next week, but we will be back the following week to talk about episode 13 and 14 of Prodigy. We're really excited to continue the coverage, and this will just give us a little bit more meat so we can give y'all full hour-long episodes. You can subscribe, rate, and review on Apple and on Spotify. You can find all the links to where you can find our content at StarTrekPod.co, as well as the link to our Patreon. Clyde, where else can people find us on the internet?
You can find us at our Twitter links, or really all of our links, at Star Trek Pod.
That is correct.
Shout out to Karen, who runs our Twitter. Thanks, Karen.
Shout out to Karen.
Thank you, Karen. We appreciate you. Thank you so much for joining us. We will see y'all next time. Live long and prosper. Bye.
Let's fly.